first presidential debate, maybe only presidential debate between Kamala Harris and
Donald J. Trump.
Donald J. Trump.
And so when we're looking at this through Donald Trump's eyes, which is what this podcast is about, we're gonna bring you from behind the scenes of what is going on inside Donald Trump's brain as much as is possible, and his team at Mar-a-Lago. What do we think is his biggest weakness? And is it going to be the racist, misogynistic, caustic stuff that he says, or is it that he
but that's
is going to speak
but
is it going to be gibberish,
though,
right?
You know?
So is that the biggest issue for him, or is it like when he gets into gibberish and starts saying like childcare is tax credit?
For the debate, you mean?
Yes.
So what's interesting? I actually thought he was a lot more measured than I expected him to be when he did that debate with Joe Biden. And I don't know if it's because he's crazy like a fox and we all kind of underestimate his ability to regulate himself. But if the conditions for the debate on Tuesday with Kamala Harris are this controlled environment, he may be able to pull off what he did in that first debate with Joe Biden. But here's where I'm going to tell myself that I'm wrong, because Joe Biden is not Kamala Harris. And I think Kamala Harris has done an effective job through her team, especially her social media team, of really putting him on his back foot and being on defense. They, as in Kamala HQ and that whole crew, they use his own words against him. They use J.D. Vance's own words against J.D. Vance. They don't have to kind of go outside to some external source to get the ammunition. He's giving them the fodder in and of itself. I feel like what's going to happen on Tuesday is if Kamala Harris just let Donald Trump be Donald Trump, she's just going to be able to mine this like ridiculous abundance of riches of absolute campaign material to pull from that debate. Because Trump can't help himself. At least I don't think he can when he's against a woman and a woman of color.
But what do you think he's going to say that's like it's going to be bad? Is he going to say something that like what are the headlines the next day? Like what are they going to focus on? Like what's his biggest weakness in that sense?
It depends on who he takes his cues from, right? So if he takes his cues from the questions that are posed by the moderators, I do think that maybe, like, for example, if there's a question about the border, he'll be like, she's the border czar, or whatever. I don't do the imitation as well as you do. But it depends if he takes his cues from the questions or if he does and then he goes off on tangents like he does. I do think, though, and this is a really kind of big question mark, how much do you see Kamala Harris leaning into the prosecutor versus felon rhetoric and dialogue or whatever? And I'm wondering, does Donald Trump go there? Meaning, does he then say she slept her way to the top, right? Like, does he get that down and dirty? You look skeptical. Like, you don't think he would actually do that?
I don't know. So I think, I really think it goes both. It depends on the Trump you get on the day. And like, this is kind of how the Trump advisors are seeing it. And this is how we kind of reported it is you either get happy Trump, who's in a good mood and is kind of sharp for him, and he's quippy like he was with Joe Biden. And I think the one thing that Trump did that was kind of widely shared on social afterwards was like the stuff about the golf, and when Biden got jumbled up about Medicare.
But does he rehearse that though? Because we've heard reporting that he doesn't prepare.
He doesn't
so that's
prepare.
just him, like his
Him
off the
riffing,
cuff.
yes.
Oh.
As far as I can tell.
What was it? Even a blind squirrel finds a nut.
Well, he found it twice. He did that, and then he got
a broken clock is correct twice a day. So well, there you go.
So that's what the Trump guys are hoping for, right? The Trump campaign is hoping that they get happy Trump, where he's quippy and he makes these off the cuff remarks, and they want the Trump that they got in the debate with Hillary when he says like, "Oh, because you'll be in jail."
But the only common denominator through all of these things is Donald Trump, meaning the Donald Trump you see at any of these debates, whether it's happy Trump or psychotic Trump, it's still Donald Trump. When you say happy Trump versus Hillary Clinton's not Kamala Harris either. I mean, I feel like the wild card here is Kamala Harris. I know that sounds obvious to say, but I also think she's younger than him. Like, what time is this debate, by the way?
8 p.m., I think. Maybe later.
Oh, it's not later?
Maybe it is.
Well, he's the oldest guy running for president of the United States right now, so it's past his bedtime, one. And two, She's younger than him. She's faster than him. She can pivot. I mean, she's got professional training and experience to be able to deal with thinking on her feet. He doesn't know how to think on his
true.
feet.
Okay, so that's the one. That's one of many major assets that Harris has. Is as a former prosecutor, she is going to be quick at thinking on her feet.
She has to do.
Right. This is what we'll talk about. And I guess that's the one thing that the Trump campaign is looking at. The second thing they're looking at is, well, can she quote unquote, sass her way through the debate in like difficult moments for her? And the Trump campaign seems to think that if she gets a difficult question, she'll be like, "Oh, stop it!" Or next question. Or that's and she will make some sort of sassy remark.
I don't think she'll sass the moderators. I don't think so.
Interesting. You think she'll sass Trump?
Yes.
Even with the mics,
100%.
with the mics off?
I think what she has perceived accurately as being successful thus far has been the authenticity of who she is, right? She hasn't apologized for her laugh. She hasn't apologized for being a woman. She hasn't apologized for achieving everything she's achieved. I think that she would never show quote unquote sass. I mean, she may do her own quips maybe to a question that's posed by the moderators, but I think she's going to reserve her kind of like bite for Donald Trump, when he says it, how he says it, et cetera. And I actually expect her to engage him more. I think that makes him get off his game, not the like, let me answer the moderator kind of this way. I think if she looks at him and she points at him and she does this, he's going to freak the you-know-what out.
I think that's right. And I think if she confronts him directly like that and looks across the stage and makes that sort of finger-pointing comment, Trump will turn and look at him because he likes that sort of confrontation. And I think if he gets to that point, it could be game over for him. I think this is his big major weakness, not just about people, like we talk about, like, you know, he struggles with women, he struggles with like black women especially, but I think if someone's in his face and like kind of being aggressive and fighting towards him, he can't resist clamping back, taking the bait and clamping back. And I think if he does that, even if you previously had happy Trump, suddenly you might get nasty Trump and, you know, hyper-aggressive Trump and psychotic Trump, and that's not where he wants to be.
So my question for you, though, because again, you are so like tuned in and dialed into all of the Trump campaign stuff as well, not just the Trump legal. My question is he legit not preparing? Because I feel like that's such a red herring for the public, having the Trump campaign being like, the guy is a professional debater, so he doesn't need to prepare. Is that true? Or is that just a smokescreen and he's like furiously preparing behind the scenes with, I don't know, I'll pick like Kimberly Guilfoyle as Kamala Harris?
I think it's somewhere in the middle. He's not, as far as I can tell, and based on our reporting, he is not doing sit-down mock debates with people, you know, standing up and pretending to be like Harris. What he is doing, he is sitting down with people like Tulsi Gabbard, and he's going through what they call policy sessions, because they can't bring themselves to call it, you know, debate for whatever reason, so they call it policy sessions.
Oh, but there's actual policy?
Well, they talk about like the topics that they think will come out, and like I think he kind of thinks them through. So I don't know, it's somewhere in the middle from what we can understand.
So
is that, I don't know, does that answer your question?
Well, I'm going to cross-examine you now, so I'm going to be former lady prosecutor. No. Isn't it true, though, Mr. Lowell, that we heard evidence and we read evidence during the course of the Manhattan DA's trial that when the Access Hollywood tape broke, well, prior to it coming out, that information was provided to Michael Cohen and others, and they interrupted his prep for a debate at the time to let him know and let the members know of his campaign about the existence of the story that was going to come out?
Yes, but you got to also remember, like, he's changed. Like, he's changed in the last two cycles.
He's become more decrepit. Is that what you're saying?
I think, I don't know if I call him decrepit. What has changed is his approach, and he has become much less trusting. He does his prep, you know, his prep with a smaller number of advisors. He does it with people he thinks he can be kind of himself with. It's a much smaller group. It's not like not like how it was.
And yet, though, again, if I may, he surrounds himself with the same people from 2016. Corey Lewandowski, Jason Miller. I mean, the cast of characters is the same. It's not like he's figured out that he needs to do Trump campaign version 2.0, better, faster, stronger.
Well, he tried that.
Like
he tried that in 2020.
Like, but that's my thing.
And he didn't like it, and so he has gone back to the 16 group, but he himself has changed, I think. Having observed him now for several years, you know, there are people who covered him longer, but having seen him in the post-presidency life, I do think he has changed. I think he is more insular. But I also think he also gets a lot of what he thinks is practice. He goes to rallies and he makes all the points that he wants to make over the course of the hour.
That's not a debate, though.
But he remembers the lines.
So the guy has the capacity to remember one-liners that he thinks are true zingers that are just racist and misogynistic and terrible, and he thinks that that's going to be enough for a debate. I mean, listen, if that's what he wants to do and deploy, that's on him. But
what I've noticed increasingly in his ad lib remarks at rallies, when he's not looking at the prompt and he tells these stories, the stories are the same. He does have a capacity to remember them, even ad-libbing. It's funny that they don't actually write it into the script, because clearly this is not something that they want him necessarily talking about. But then he goes on about, like, I remember at Mar-a-Lago, we were once sitting there listening to this hour and a half. I think it was the night of the midterms, or maybe the week before. And he was talking about how they're bringing the buses of migrants were coming over with like fentanyl strapped to their backs, the caravans. But like, if I just remember it because he was like, and the buses are lining up at the border to come in. And, like, it was such an absurd image.
Demonstrably false.
It's just total bullshit. But the way he was describing it was so funny, it was so memorable that the next time he delivered that line at a rally I went to, and I could see he wasn't looking at the prompter, he was just riffing. But clearly I think he remembers like images and moments and kind of stories in his head, and he just likes to repeat them. And so I think in that sense he gets a lot of repetition. I wouldn't call it practice. He gets repetition at delivering the stories.
That's what some old people do, I want you to know. You're too young to know this, Hugo, but that's what some old people do, just letting you know.
Like
the
ranting
repetition of stories, the angry old man memes,
shouting
at the cloud, right? How about the Trump screaming at the kid mowing the lawn?
That's the funniest meme.
But that is what you're telling me. Like that's what he's leaning into. And if that's old hat Trump, he's going to get his ass kicked on Tuesday.
Well, let's see. So let's see about the debate, because it's obviously going to be a big moment, and who knows? Because Team Harris also have their own concerns, right? And this was actually something I was talking to someone recently about, which was she has the unfortunate position in being modern day America of a woman, and not just a woman but a black woman, and if there's this chit chat about if she comes off as too strong, like kind of white voters will be like, oh, she's a little too strong for us, but then if she doesn't kick back hard enough, they'll be like, oh, she was intimidated. And in a sense, do you think there's this possibility that she can't win whatever she does unless she's perfect?
So I'm going to share a small anecdote with you because it answers the question. When I first started as a felony trial prosecutor in Miami-Dade County, I was 26 years old, 27 years old. And I had to try all of these cases, and I was just trying so hard to do the right thing and to try these cases and to win, et cetera. And this judge who I was appearing in front of pulled me aside, because I always wanted the constructive criticism on how I could do better. And he told me, he said, look, Katie, I know you went to Yale for undergrad and you are clearly very smart. He's like, you have a very big vocabulary, et cetera. He's like, but that's not what jurors want. These jurors don't really care what your undergrad degree is, and frankly, they'll never really know. These jurors look at you as the prosecutor, and what they want to see is somebody who's willing to roll up her sleeves and get into the trenches with them, right? And to be there with them, like alongside them in some way. And that stuck with me because I felt like what he was trying to say in a more polite way, right, than what I'd given myself the grace for, was I was trying too hard to be something or someone that I'm not. And that's why I think authenticity is the key. So if Kamala Harris continues to be the authentic her, who she is, whether she, quote, sasses or not, whether she appropriately shows anger when it is the time to do, I don't really think she has the luxury of caring anymore. We are going to be less than 60 days from Election Day when that debate happens on Tuesday. And I think that if she comes and she just is herself, she has nothing to lose, right? I mean, literally, Hugo, the stakes are so high. She has been catapulted into a race right before the finish line. So I don't care if I am her, that some Republican in God knows what, thinks I'm an angry black woman if I raise my voice in anger over what he says to me or what he says is just wrong. I don't think she loses any ground or credibility. And if she does, then I don't think that voter or that prospective voter has really looked at who she is. I think that was part of the reason why she didn't have such a successful 2020 run either, right? When she was trying to deal with everybody in a crowded primary. I think
she was trying to be someone else.
Exactly. I think if you are who you are, I think you have success no matter what you do in whatever industry space. I just think when it comes to this, she and Tim Walz are running on being genuine. And I think that is the key to her success on Tuesday.
It'll be interesting to see because you also have reporting that the bottom line with Trump right now is he doesn't really have a plan to land effective attacks on Harris. And part of, I think, what his team is looking at with this debate is a bit of a reset moment. But and we have reported at The Guardian that they realize nothing they do between now and the debate, and this has been the case for about 2 weeks now, nothing they do between now and then and the debate was going to cut through the news cycle. Nothing was going to move the needle in a significant way. And so they have been looking at the debate as a moment to not only try and show that, Trump is still here, number one, but also to deliver the talking points that he wants the media to cover more. But
it's all unoriginal, though. It's going to be border immigration. It's going to be economy, right? And then it's going to be what? Soft. She's really soft on crime. So she was, or the flip, she wrongly imprisoned a whole bunch of young people of color as a DA. I mean, it's you want to yawn. There's something that's wholly unoriginal, Hugo, which is why I think that his biggest challenge is going to be himself on Tuesday. It's not Kamala Harris, it's him. He's his biggest enemy going into Tuesday.